All right, here we are on the Frank Yadkin channel. Hope you're doing well. I have just been doing this sporadically. It's sporadically to me. I think God has a bigger plan than I do for it. So here I am again. I live in the eastern part of the United States, down on the coast. I had to go down to the beach, down to the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, about 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Did not even see the ocean. Had some business to take care of down there. This time of year is still fairly nice, a little bit sketchy. It can be cold one day and warm the next day. We've had some, about a week now of 80 degrees, 79, 80 degrees, really nice here in November. And we're on Hebrews 9. I've been doing the 1-year Bible. And, you know, I've noticed on YouTube, if I do a short video, YouTube doesn't show it very much. If I do a longer one, and you know, I hate to do a long one because I've spent so many years learning how to use word economy as a writer and a producer. And these, you know, if I see a podcast that's 2 or 3 hours long, I just skip that. There's no way I'm going to listen to something that long unless I'm on a long car trip or something. And even then, I don't want to be around the same personalities for 2 or 3 hours like that on a podcast. I think that's just ridiculous, but they seem to be really popular, and YouTube is favoring those kinds of things because it keeps the listener on the YouTube channel a lot longer. So, you know, it's become very competitive on the web. Hopefully, yeah, I had hoped when the web started to develop that would not happen, but you know it's going to happen. You know, people are going to put sort of a frame around their own brand, and they'll do whatever they can to keep others out and keep their own brand sanctity. Don't really blame people for doing that, but you know, it's like all these phone chargers. You know, now they're making, like, Apple has a certain kind of charger, and you have to buy the charger to fit the iPad or whatever the device is. And it just gets ridiculous because now you got 15 different chargers and they all have different sizes and a different frequency range and so on. It just, you know, and they're doing that with branding on the internet as well. It just gets to be a little tedious. And so now I'm having to make longer videos just because YouTube likes that, you know. And so if you put out a long video and you talk, you know, extemporaneously for longer than you really had planned to, it's just ridiculous. So I'm sorry, I don't want to do that. You know, sometimes I think I'll just put 5 or 6 videos together and splice them together so they'll be longer, and I might just start doing that because I don't want to waste anybody's time by just being hot, you know, full of hot air and long-winded. Anyway, we're got a nice time of year here. It's November. Had some trick-or-treaters come by. Actually, I had to go out to the sidewalk and meet them because I wasn't doing trick-or-treating at the house. And that's fine. You know, mostly everybody was just kind of nice, you know, good old Southern trick-or-treat behavior. You do have to be careful, though, this time of year because COVID is back, and a lot of people have COVID. Yeah, even though it's 2023, I'm just sitting here having a cup of coffee, and I have already been over this material today. This is Hebrews. This is kind of a throwback to the Old Testament. The first covenant had regulations for worship and also an earthly sanctuary. This is really sort of kind of recapping what went on in the Old Testament. Behind the second curtain was a room called the Most Holy Place and so on. I'm not going to read it all. This ark, the Ark of the Covenant, this is where this ark contained the gold jar of manna, Aaron's staff that had budded, and the stone tablets of the covenant. Above the ark were the cherubim of the glory overshadowing the atonement. And it goes down here to say that we can't talk about this, can't discuss these things in detail right now. When everything has been arranged like this, the priest entered regularly. And what they're going to talk about here is the blood. Only the high priest entered the inner room, and that only once a year, and never without blood, which he offered for himself and for the sins of the people had committed in ignorance. Because there had to be a blood sacrifice, and that's where we are talking about the animals, the goats and the cows, or whatever it was that was sacrificed in the Old Testament. And the Holy Spirit was showing by this that the way into The most holy place had not yet been disclosed as long as the first tabernacle was still functioning. These details are really interesting because there was a system, a plan, and it's very obvious. This is an illustration for the present time, indicating that the gifts and sacrifices being offered were not able to clear the conscience of the worshiper. They are only a matter of food and drink and various ceremonial washings, external regulations applying until the time of the new order, the blood of Christ. But when Christ came as high priest of the good things that are now already here, he went through the greater and more perfect tabernacle that is not made with human hands, that is to say, is not a part of this creation. He did not enter by means of the blood of goats and calves, but he entered the most holy place once for all by his own blood. So it seems that in the Old Testament, and I'm not a Bible scholar, I am a person who has studied for a long time, but that the other sacrifices in the Old Testament were sort of a placeholder until this happened, thus obtaining eternal redemption. The blood of goats and bulls and the ashes of a heifer sprinkled on those who are ceremonially unclean, sanctify them so that they are outwardly clean. How much more then will the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself unblemished to God, cleanse our consciences from acts that lead to death, so that we may serve the living God. For this reason, this is important. Christ is the mediator of a new covenant, that those who are called may receive the promised eternal inheritance, now that he has died as a ransom to set them free from the sins committed under the first covenant. In the case of the will, I'm not going to go into that. That's so important. The Old Testament spends a lot of time talking about the sacrifices of animals, goats and calves and so on. And it was all a precursor to this when Christ came. When Moses had proclaimed every command of the law to all the people, he took the blood of calves together with water, scarlet wool, and branches of hyssop, and sprinkled the scroll and all the people. He said, "This is the blood of the covenant which God has commanded you to keep." It's just amazing how this, we're talking about thousands of years here, but this plan was in place. In the same way, he sprinkled with the blood both the tabernacle and everything used in its ceremonies. In fact, the law requires that nearly everything be cleansed with blood, and without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness. And that's what Jesus did. Just absolutely amazing, just what Jesus did, and this had been planned all along. So Christ was sacrificed once to take away the sins of many, and he will appear a second time, not to bear sin, but to bring salvation to those who are waiting for him. This is at Bible Gateway. This is Hebrews 9. Just amazing, just amazing. Thank you for hanging in there. And I don't like keeping people on YouTube just because it's a tactic to get YouTube to show the video a lot more. So I might just, wait and get a bunch of these and splice them together so that I'm not wasting everybody's time, including my own. Because you just want to be sincere about these things. Hope you have a good rest of your week. It's about middle of the week now. Today is Wednesday? We'll talk to you next time. God bless you. Take care.